Progressive metal. Does anyone really like this stuff? Let's get into it, shall we? Prog metal is a genre that interests me. It really does. I like all that noodly stuff and those grand operatic vistas, as opposed to conventional metal that operates within the paradigms of rock and roll and blues, all denim jackets and cock jostling. However, progressive metal ties itself into the idea of metal. The clue is in the name itself. It kind of squeezes itself into a specific box, if you will, a metal box no doubt, replete with down-tuned guitars and big beardy types growling at me. And as much as I like progressive metal, despite the title of this video, I find it doesn't hold my interest or fascinate me to the same extent that traditional progressive rock does. It lacks the variety and nuance and instrumental diversity of something like Close to the Edge or Foxtrot. You might fundamentally disagree with me on this. Interestingly, the poet Philip Larkin considered the three Ps, Picasso, Pound and Charlie Parker, as being that unholy trinity of modernity, something that was culturally ruinous. If he was alive today, I wonder if he'd make it a quaternity and add another P for progressive metal. Who knows? Anyway, if you must get all dark and heavy on me, here are the 10 best progressive metal albums in my opinion. Let's do this. Number 10 is Meshuggah and Chaosphere from 1998. This one's a noisy bugger, it really is. The onomatopoeic thud of djent, which many see as kind of being established by this band and specifically this album. It also demonstrates just how much finesse and flair can be achieved with those chug chords, shall we call them. The riffs bounce back and forth with these complex time shifts, with the solos splattering these intriguing patterns across a lot of it. Each song will have you guessing as to which direction they're going to take next. One critic described their music as refined technical aggression. Low chugging riffs, a tonal tapping leads and brutal vocals all wrapped up in some intriguing time signature shifts and bombastic delivery. What a bloody racket this album is. Number 9 is Colours by Between the Buried and Me from 2007. Born out of a desire to escape pedestrian metal, this band set out to prove what progressive metal could do in a modern context. And they managed the transitions very well. Frenetic, thrashy riffs are seamlessly melded with death grunts and growls. That sit well alongside soft melodic vocal lines and interwoven harmonies. I'd have to say this album is an intriguing listen. Number 8 is Fate's Warning and Awaken the Guardian from 1986. This is a real milestone for the genre. In fact, it earned them the badge, the Godfathers of Progressive Metal. There's a wonderful intermixing of time shifts and musical proficiency without anything feeling contrived or forced in any way. I love the way the guitars dive and rise on this album, that general instrumental interplay, all beautifully complementing the narrative arc of the album. I love the feeling that it evokes, this mystical, otherworldly hum that seems to rise up from the music. It's certainly arresting. And those vocals, I mean, my God, I would need a pair of pliers to reach notes like that. Number 7 is Queensryche and Operation Mindcrime from 1988. This one has to be on this list. This is the album that brought progressive metal to the great unwashed. This album includes samples, acted segments, operatic swells, and if that wasn't enough, we're treated to an array of brash riffage, prog rock shifts, tempos, acoustic arpeggios, all augmented by the heavier, rockier numbers, as well as some serious balladry as well. Essentially, Queensryche take the operatic sensibilities of bands like The Who and Pink Floyd and reframe it within this brash framework that certainly appealed to that legion of denim-jacketed Iron Maiden and Judas Priest fans at the time. Absolutely wonderful stuff, groundbreaking album. Number 6 is Devin Townsend's Terir from 2001. This is a kind of progressive metal travelogue, but not really. It's not exactly Jack Kerouac, shall we say, but it's certainly inspired by geographical traversing. And this is apparent in the expansive feel of these songs that is redolent of broadening horizons. A melodic and atmospheric journey that's full of these breathtaking vistas. Terir showed Townsend's expanding his songwriting ability, I think. It's more spatial, I think, than his previous work, allowing for an incredible balance in the music. Great stuff. Number 5 is Cynic and their album Focus from 1993. Focus, this is the band's debut album if I'm not mistaken, one that I believe certainly left its mark on prog metal with its melding of progressive metal and jazz of all things. I love the track Sentiment on this album. This explores the creative possibilities of exploring these rather strange and incongruous bedfellows. It is both equally baffling and exhilarating. For Cynic, the traditional framework of death metal is a solid and metallic foundation from which they can launch Icarus-like into the progressive metal firmament. Number 4 is Tool and Lateralis from 2001. This album brought the band's music beyond what they'd achieved on previous albums. You see the band digging in some pretty complex stuff. In fact, listening to this, you will ask yourself if these asymmetrical chunks of distemper even qualify as songs. It's a wonderful exploration of mathematics and spiritual matters, shall we say. This heavy music rebranding that sort of emerges beyond the new wave of British heavy metal is fascinating, replete with its gent chug of guitars, scrotum-wrenching growls, and Ming the Merciless goatees. Lateralis stands for a different aesthetic, shall we say. The only extremes here are achieved in the pursuit of musical invention and excellence, as well as conceptual nous as well. I would go as far as to say one of the most extraordinary things about this album is the band's restraint. A truly extraordinary album. Number 3 is Opeth and Blackwater Park from 2001. They produced an album here that's full of personality with careful attention to detail, easily blending together moments of dissonance and harmony in this chillingly beautiful album. A work of breathtaking, expansive breadth that is divided not so much into songs as movements. The tracks traverse a quite diverse musical terrain defined by acoustic guitars, solo piano passages, ambient soundscapes, stoner rock grooves, and even Eastern-tinged melodies. Something for everyone on this album. And let's not forget these savage punctuations of death metal fury. And the vocals run the gamut of bowel-churning grunts to mellifluous warblings at the flip of a coin. This is certainly one that could easily top any list of this type. And number 2 is Iron Maiden's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son from 1988. There's no doubt that Maiden's dominance of the heavy metal scene in the 1980s enabled them to take this genre into some interesting nooks and crannies, blending their love of progressive rock with the metallic assault of their music. And this progressive concept album is emblematic of everything that is glorious about this band, and deranged as well. Many see this band as the progenitor of progressive metal. I would argue that I think Rush have a huge part to play in terms of this genre, quite frankly. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is an album that showed just how intricate the band could get in their mastery of this genre, with songs like The Clairvoyant. It seems to pull the listener into different realities beyond this earthly existence. And it's certainly a little bit of a tribute, I think, to Doris Stokes. Steve Harris was apparently inspired by the novel Seventh Son by Orson Scott Card, which tells the story of soothsayers in the Old West. But apparently also Aleister Crowley's 1917 novel Moonchild was also a major influence on this album. And number 1, the ultimate progressive metal album, is Dream Theater's Metropolis 2, Scenes from a Memory from 1999. This is a perfect album from this band and establishes a wonderful balance between instrumental virtuosity, melody and concept. Interestingly, all music said of this record. Dream Theater was almost aggressively out of fashion in 1999. Few bands subscribed to their dense blend of progressive rock and post-Halen metal. Scenes from a Memory is an unabashed and unapologetic concept album, which is just how we like it. It's told in 2 acts about the 1928 murder of a young woman and how a modern man is haunted by the crime. A convoluted, difficult tale told with aplomb, I have to say. The album plays more like a suite than a collection of individual songs, and at times this means the album can bog down slightly in its own flights of fancy with long, nice instrumental passages. Well, the concentrated listener will look to pick out all the intricacies and song structures within the musicianship. But it's the storytelling, it's the vocals, everything about this record is impressive. And it is the finest progressive metal album out there, in my opinion, of course. So there you are, that's my top 10 progressive metal albums. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree or not, and what would your list be? If you haven't done so already, please do click like, subscribe, check that notification bell, it's so important for the YouTube algorithm. And check some of the links below this video for ways you can support the sterling work done at this channel. It's always much appreciated. Become a patron, why not? There's a fine body of work on there now, and be part of a really great classic rock community. Anyway, I'll leave you with my closing salvo, which is hope you're well, staying safe, and of course that you keep listening.